My father died with his dream still in a drawer. He had carried it for 30 years. Every year another excuse, another season of waiting, another reason he had almost convinced himself was legitimate. And then one Tuesday morning he was gone, and the dream was still exactly where he had always left it. Unstarted, untouched, perfect in the way that only things that have never been tested can be perfect. 3 days after we buried him, I found it. I was going through his belongings, the small, accumulated evidence of a man's life, when I opened the bottom drawer of his desk. Underneath a stack of old papers and a broken watch he had been meaning to fix for years, there was a notebook. I almost missed it. The handwriting inside was careful, deliberate. The handwriting of someone who had meant every word. Page after page of plans. The architecture of the business he had spent 30 years intending to build. Numbers, ideas, calculations. The whole thing fully formed, meticulously considered, and completely unlived. There were dates written in the margins: 1987, 1993, 1999. Each date a new beginning that had remained exactly that. A beginning that never began. The last entry was from 2004. He had stopped writing in that notebook 21 years before he died. And in all those years between the last date and the morning I found it, he had not built the business. He had not started it. He had not taken a single real step toward it. He had carried the dream through 30 years of ordinary mornings, 30 years of telling himself he would begin when he was ready, when things were clearer, when life finally calmed down long enough to give him the space he was waiting for. And then he was 61 years old. And then he was gone. I sat on the floor of his room with the notebook in my hands for a long time, not moving, reading his handwriting, running my fingers across plans that had never become anything, that had lived only here, in this drawer, in the dark, waiting for a day that never arrived. I was not crying yet. I was too stunned to cry. And then the thought came that broke me completely open. I was doing the same thing. Not with a notebook. I had not even been honest enough with myself to write it down, but inside me, for years, I had been building the same architecture, the same plans, the same precise, fully formed picture of the thing I was going to do. The thing I kept telling myself I would start when I was ready, when I had enough clarity, when my life finally gave me the uninterrupted space I needed to do it properly. My father had been 30 when he wrote that first entry. I was not much younger than that now. I sat on that floor and I cried in a way I had not cried since I was a child. Not for him. I had already cried for him. I cried for the version of him that had sat in this same room decades before, full of the same certainty I felt, writing in that notebook with the absolute conviction that this time, finally, the waiting was over. I cried because he had been exactly where I was standing, and I could see, with the specific, brutal clarity that only comes from holding a dead man's unlived dream in your hands, exactly where I was going. I made a decision that night, not a plan, not another entry in another notebook. A decision that the story I was holding in my hands was not going to be mine. And everything I am about to tell you came from what I learned after that. What I discovered in the months and years that followed is that my father's waiting had not been laziness. I knew my father. He was one of the hardest working people I have ever known. He was disciplined, capable, and more aware than almost anyone that time was moving. He did not waste his life. He lived it with effort and presence and love. But there was one door he never walked through, one thing he kept approaching and stepping back from. And the reason was not laziness. The reason was fear wearing 3 different masks. 3 thoughts that sounded so reasonable, so intelligent,
so responsible that he believed them, that I believed them, that I am willing to bet you believe at least one of them right now. I want to name them for you, one by one, because the moment you can see a thought for what it is, not wisdom, not strategy, not patience, but fear with better vocabulary, it loses the power it has held over you. The first thought: I'll start when I feel ready. I spent years waiting for this feeling,
Some internal alignment that would finally arrive and pull me naturally into motion. Some morning when the resistance would be gone and the path would be clear and beginning would feel easy. That morning never came, not once. And reading my father's notebook, seeing the same waiting stretching across 30 years of his life, I finally understood why. Readiness is not a feeling that precedes action. It is a feeling that action creates. The psychology of this is now beyond debate. The brain does not produce the neurochemistry of confidence, momentum, and clarity before you begin. It produces it in direct response to beginning. Every step forward, however uncertain, however imperfect, triggers the exact internal state you have been waiting to feel first. It has always been on the other side of the act, not before it, never before it. William James, the father of American psychology, spent years studying this and arrived at the simplest and most important sentence I have ever read on the subject. He wrote, "Act first, and the feeling follows. Not eventually, in direct response to the action. The courage appears after you step forward, not before. The clarity appears after you begin, not before. The readiness you have been waiting for is waiting for you on the other side of beginning. It has been there every single day that you did not begin." My father's 1987 entry was full of energy. 1993 was more measured. By 1999, something in the handwriting had changed. The entries were shorter, more careful, as if he was writing about something further away rather than something getting closer. The waiting had not prepared him. It had slowly, invisibly separated him from the thing he wanted until the distance felt too large to cross. Here is what I do now when I feel that pull to wait until conditions are better. I give myself one rule. Begin for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Do the smallest real version of the thing and then stop if I want to. I've never wanted to stop after 5 minutes, because by then, the readiness I was waiting for has arrived. It is always there, on the other side of 5 minutes of actual beginning, without exception, every time. Tonight, not tomorrow, tonight, name the thing you have been waiting to feel ready for, and begin for 5 minutes. That is all. The feeling you have been waiting for is 5 minutes away. The second thought: I need clarity before I start. This one took me the longest to see through, because it sounds the most intelligent. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like the kind of careful, measured thinking that separates people who succeed from people who rush in without a plan. What it actually is, and I say this having lived inside it for years, is the most sophisticated form of delay available to an intelligent mind. Seneca wrote, and these words stopped me when I first read them, "While we delay, life passes. Not slowly, not eventually. While we are deliberating, right now, in the specific, irreplaceable hours being spent analyzing what we should be doing instead of doing it." Clarity does not come from thinking. Clarity comes from doing. This is not motivational language. This is the mechanical reality of how knowledge is produced. Every step you take toward the thing you are building
returns real information. Information about what works, what does not, what the next step actually is, that no amount of thinking from the outside can produce. The path forms under your feet as you walk it. It does not exist in advance, fully mapped, waiting to be understood clearly enough to begin. My father had 30 years of plans in that notebook. 30 years of thinking about the path. Not one step on it. The most painful thing I realized, sitting on that floor reading those pages, is that by 1999, he had more than enough clarity to begin. He had always had enough clarity to begin. What he did not have was the willingness to risk finding out what happened when the plan met reality. Because as long as the plan stayed in the notebook, it was still perfect. Starting would have meant risking the imperfection of the real. I understand that now, because I was doing the same thing. Here's the practice I replaced planning with. Whenever I feel the pull toward more research, more preparation, more refinement before beginning, I set a timer for 15 minutes and I do the smallest real version of the next step. Just one. Then I look at what I learned from
doing it. Every single time, that 15 minutes of actual action has given me more genuine, usable clarity than days of thinking. Because it is real information from the real world. The only place clarity that matters actually comes from. The third thought. I'll be consistent when life calms down. This is the one I need to speak about most carefully, because this is the thought that took the most from me. And I believe, reading that notebook, that it is the one that took the most from my father. He had real pressures, real demands, a real and legitimate claim that conditions were genuinely difficult on any given day. I am not dismissing any of that. I am saying something harder. Life never gave him the window he was waiting for. Not because his life was uniquely difficult, because that window does not exist. Not for him, not for me, not for you, not for anyone living a real human life. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the Roman Empire. He managed armies, wars, plagues, political betrayals, and the constant demands of governing 70 million people. And in the middle of all of that, not after it, not once it calmed down, but inside it, he wrote the Meditations, one of the most enduring works of human self-reflection in history. He did not find the quiet. He stopped waiting for the quiet. He wrote in the noise. I think about my father waiting for a stretch of calm that never came. I think about all the years it kept not arriving. I think about the specific cruelty of that, of a man who wanted to start, who intended to start, who fully believed he would start, spending 30 years in the waiting room of his own life. And then I think about this. There were calm periods. I know there were. Brief ones, unexpected ones, moments where the pressure eased and the demands lowered. And in every single one of those moments, he rested. He recovered. He told himself he deserved the space. And then the next wave arrived before he had done anything with the window he had been waiting years to receive. The window was not the problem. The structure was the problem. He had no time that belonged to the work, regardless of what else was happening. He was looking for what remained after everything else, and everything else always took everything there was. The year after I found the notebook, I made one structural change. Every morning, before anything else begins, 25 minutes belong to the work, not to messages,
not to the noise of the day, not to whatever the world is about to ask of me. 25 minutes, non-negotiable. It does not matter how tired I am. It does not matter what is happening. It does not move. 25 minutes every single day is more than 9,000 minutes a year, 6 full days of focused work that simply did not exist before I protected them. I did not find the time, I created it, before the chaos had a chance to fill it. What is the one time in your day, however small, that you are willing to protect? Name it, write it down, and treat it the way you would treat an appointment with the most important commitment of your life. Because that is exactly what it is. I want to tell you what happened after that night. I did not feel ready. I did not have the clarity I kept telling myself I needed. My life did not calm down. It remained exactly as loud and demanding and imperfect as it had always been. I opened a blank document and I wrote one sentence. It was a bad sentence. It said almost nothing that would survive into the finished thing. But it was real. It existed. It was the first real thing I had done, not considered, not planned, not intended, but actually done. And something happened in the act of it that I had not expected. The readiness arrived. Not fully, not dramatically, but it was there. A small, specific sense of forward motion that I had been waiting years to feel and had never been able to access from the outside of beginning. It was on the other side of that one sentence. It had always been on the other side of beginning. I wrote more the next morning, and the morning after that, and slowly, imperfectly, in 25-minute increments inside an imperfect and demanding life, I built the thing I had been waiting to build. I think about my father. I think about what might have been different if someone had sat with him in 1987 and told him what I just told you. That readiness was never going to arrive first. That clarity was waiting
Inside the first step, not before it. That life was never going to give him the window, but that 25 minutes every morning, before the world started asking things of him, was all he ever needed. I believe he would have started. I believe everything was there. The dream was real. The capacity was real. The desire was real. All that stood between him and it were 3 thoughts. 3 thoughts that sounded like wisdom and were quietly devastating. 3 thoughts he never saw for what they were. He did not know what they were. You do now. Here is exactly what I do, every day, in a real life that is as imperfect and loud as yours. First, I begin before I am ready, always. The moment I notice the urge to wait until conditions improve, I give myself 5 minutes, just 5. Begin for 5 minutes, and I'm allowed to stop. I have never stopped after 5 minutes, because the readiness always arrives in the beginning, not before, in the beginning. Second, I use action as my research. When I need clarity, I do not sit down to think. I sit down to do the smallest real version of the next step. Then I learn from what happens. The information that returns from real action is worth more than anything thinking can produce. I have never found this to fail. Third, I protect one time, every morning, 25 minutes, before anything else. This time does not move for any reason, because I know what happens when it moves.
I have seen it in a notebook in a bottom drawer. Fourth, I shrink the unit until the excuse disappears. When the project feels too large to begin, I ask, what is the smallest real version of this I could do right now? Not the full thing, the smallest real thing. Because the smallest real thing is always possible. And the person who does the smallest real thing every day becomes, over time, the person who finishes things. Fifth, I ask myself one question every month. I sit quietly and I think about my father's notebook. And I ask, if someone went through my belongings today, what would they find? Evidence of a life being lived, or evidence of a life being planned? The answer to that question determines what I do the next morning. My father was 61 years old. He had carried his dream for 30 years without taking a single real step toward it. He was not a failure. He was a good man who believed, with complete sincerity, that the right moment was always just ahead, that soon he would feel ready, that soon he would have the clarity he needed, that soon life would calm down enough to give him the space the dream deserved. And then one Tuesday morning, he was gone, and the dream was in the drawer. I sat on the floor of his room, and I made him a promise. Not out loud, not in words. In the specific, irreversible way promises are made to people who can no longer hear them. I promised him I would not end up in the same drawer. I want to ask you the question that changed my life. Not as a thought experiment, as a real and honest reckoning with the one thing that matters more than anything else in this conversation. If you died tomorrow, if someone who loved you went through your belongings in the quiet days that followed, what would they find? Would they find the life you built? Or would they find the plans for the life you kept waiting to begin? You have heard the three thoughts now. You have seen them for exactly what they are. You cannot unknow what you know. The right moment is not coming. The right moment has always been now. Comment below with one word, the name of the thing you have been waiting to start. Just the name of it. Because naming it out loud in front of others is the first real act of beginning. And I read every single one. If this is not finished with you, if there is something still turning in you that one video cannot hold, what comes next goes deeper. Because the three thoughts are only the surface of why we wait. Beneath them is something older and more fundamental. And that is exactly where we are going.